McCartney's 1966 death conspiracy goes deeper than we thought. I must admit I had never heard of this theory before, but having researched it, it is fascinating. Ringo Starr has apparently come clean about the infamous conspiracy that Paul McCartney died in the 60s, saying that the burden of the secret has become too much for him to bear. Prior to Ringo coming forward with this information, a large number of conspiracy theorists suggested that the original Paul McCartney left the Beatles in 1966. Does this latest revelation confirm what conspiracy theorists have been saying for years? There is now a massive body of forensic proof, anecdotal testimony, scientific photograph assessment, comparative voice analysis, circumstantial evidence, etc. on the internet which supports Ringo Starr's alleged revelations. The following article appears to be correct in stating all the primary facts with the exception of the very last paragraph as follows. The British MI5 also announced an investigation to determine if an impostor could have indeed posed for 48 years as the member of the Order of the British Empire, Sir James Paul McCartney, during official ceremonies involving Queen Elizabeth II. Surely, it was MI5 which coordinated the entire cover-up, since they were best positioned to ensure that the conspiracy of silence would stick for so many years. As for why the Beatles agreed to go along with the cover-up scheme since 1966, the answer, especially if you were living during the 1960s and had sisters who could sing every single Beatles song with perfection, is quite obvious. Paul McCartney's death would have triggered an unprecedented shock to his millions of young and often delirious female fans around the entire world. For a much better explanation of just how traumatic such a shocking revelation would have been in 1966, the following true story is presented for the reader's edification. During the Beatles' performance at Shea Stadium, which kicked off their 1965 US tour, the massive contingent of New York City policemen who were assigned to crowd control reported rivers of urine which flowed from the girls and young women in attendance. They were in such genuinely altered states. They were so excited and beside themselves that they were literally unconscious to controlling their bodily functions. Here's another take on the fans' out-of-body excitement and uncontrollable urges. Clearly, MI5, MI6, together with the British monarchy and Parliament had to make a very swift command decision to hide the death of Paul McCartney. The following quote from Guitar World's article titled "Did Paul McCartney Actually Die in 1966?" reveals more of the inside story. Clearly, MI5, MI6, together with the British monarchy and Parliament had to make a very swift command decision to hide the death of Paul McCartney. The following quote from Guitar World's article titled "Did Paul McCartney Actually Die in 1966?" reveals more of the inside story. The replacement of Paul McCartney, why? And by whom? The article below, as it turns out, was published by a tabloid-styled, faux journalism website by the name of World News Daily Report. However, it contains a general narrative regarding the Paul McCartney story which could actually be true, right down to the exact dates and details. That the real Paul McCartney left the world scene on November 9th of 1966 is an absolute certainty for those initiated into this particular line of inquiry and investigation. Their only questions relate to why MI5, Military Intelligence, Section 5, arranged for his removal. And, exactly who did they replace him with? Their underlying theory goes like this. Paul McCartney's 1966 death was the result of an MI5 black operation overseen by the Tavistock Institute. The Beatles, it was understood, had way too much power and influence for the British intelligence services not to take advantage of it. How to practically harness such power and influence, however, remained a very difficult task, especially given the indomitable John Lennon and deeply spiritual George Harrison. The Security Service, commonly known as MI5, Military Intelligence, Section 5, is the United Kingdom's domestic counterintelligence and security agency and is part of its intelligence machinery alongside the Secret Intelligence Service, SIS, also known as MI6, focused on foreign threats, Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, and Defense Intelligence, DI. Source, MI5. The drug overdose death of their first manager, Brian Epstein, in 1967 devastated the Beatles, as it was meant to. His knowledge of Paul's death led to serious personal problems, as well as posed a hugely unpredictable public issue. That George Harrison lost his bouts with throat cancer, lung cancer, and a brain tumor at the age of 58 are also considered suspect by many. Then there was John Lennon's shocking assassination at 40 years old by Manchurian candidate Mark David Chapman, which was the direct result of his ardent anti-war stance and incessant world peace message. The Beatles lead the British invasion bands. The key piece of this ongoing and originally British musical phenomenon, known as the British invasion, revolves around the Beatles, and especially the original Macca, Paul McCartney. For it was Paul who was the premier singer for the first and most famous of all the British invasion bands to invade North America. In that very special and unique capacity did Paul exert an inordinate degree of influence over a musical era defined as the Golden Age of rock, sometimes labeled the Golden Age of modern music. Starting in the early 1960s, the Beatles' arrival in New York City on February 7, 1964 marked the beginning of a worldwide musical revolution that would continue until the mid-1980s. Sometimes known as the Rock and Roll Revolution, this global movement respected no boundaries and utilized the universal language of music, and English, to transform the entire planetary civilization. British rock groups have consistently occupied the top 7 or 8 positions of the top 10 rock and roll bands of all times lists, with the Beatles always at the number 1 spot. What is not very well known is that throughout the development and evolution of the rock and roll revolution, there were always 2 sides operating in the background trying hard, very hard, to influence the direction, and the content, and the spirit of the movement. Only by comprehending his role as the Megamacca asterisk in this often covert, multi-decade, Anglo-American operation will the real backstory of Paul McCartney be properly understood. So will the true conspiracy behind his death and cover-up, as well as his purposeful replacement. Macca asterisk. A person possessing extremely large sex appeal in spite of being a Care Bear. Possibly the most gorgeous and sexy and cute thing ever invented, better than the Beatles and Darius put together. Also has good taste in music and smells nice. The following article appeared on a website that is often used to leak truths into the public domain. Sites like World News Daily Report are utilized to disseminate highly sensitive and secret information in a manner that permits plausible deniability. While the exact facts surrounding Ringo Starr's involvement may or may not be true, the background Beatles material certainly fits with the most likely historical narrative. Ringo Starr claims the real Paul McCartney died in 1966 and was replaced by look-alike. The former drummer of the Beatles, Ringo Starr, surprised the world this morning during an interview in his luxurious Californian residence, when he admitted that the 45-year-old rumors about the alleged death of Paul McCartney in 1966 were actually true. In an exclusive interview with The Hollywood Inquirer, Mr. Starr explained that the real Paul McCartney had died in a car crash on November 9, 1966, after an argument during a Beatles recording session. To spare the public from grief, the Beatles replaced him with a man named William Shears Campbell, who was the winner of a McCartney lookalike contest and who happened to have the same kind of jovial personality as Paul. When Paul died, we all panicked, claims Ringo, obviously very emotional. We didn't know what to do, and Brian Epstein, our manager, suggested that we hire Billy Shears as a temporary solution. It was supposed to last only a week or 2, but time went by and nobody seemed to notice, so we kept playing along. Billy turned out to be a pretty good musician and he was able to perform almost better than Paul. The only problem was that he couldn't get along with John, at all. William Shears Campbell, better known as Billy Shears, does indeed disappear from records in 1966 and no traces of him can be found after Paul's alleged death. Mr. Starr alleges that the group did send out a lot of hidden messages through the years to prepare the population for the truth. He notably says that the entire Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album was awash with Paul is dead clues. The Beatles had indeed officially formed a new band featuring a fictional member named Billy Shears, which happened to be the actual name of Paul's replacement. We felt guilty about the deception, added Ringo Starr. We want to tell the world the truth, but we were afraid of the reactions it would provoke. We thought the whole planet was going to hate us for all the lies we had told, so we kept lying but sending subtle clues to relieve our consciousness. When the first rumors finally began about the whole thing, we felt very nervous and started fighting a lot with each other. At some point, it was too much for John and he decided to leave the band. Ringo Starr claims that he finally decided to tell the truth, because he was afraid that it was going to die with him. At age 74, he is the only other surviving member of the famous band besides Paul McCartney, and he was afraid the deception would never be revealed. The rumors of Paul's death began more than 45 years ago, but had always been dismissed as nonsense by the band and its entourage. In September 1969, American college students published a series of articles in which they claimed that clues to McCartney's death could be found among the lyrics and artwork of the Beatles' recordings. Clue hunting rapidly proved infectious, and within a few weeks, it had become an international phenomenon. Rumors only declined after a contemporary interview with McCartney was published in Life magazine in November 1969. Neither Paul McCartney nor anyone from his entourage have commented on Ringo Starr's declaration yet, but the interview has already provoked a lot of reactions around the world. Journalists and paparazzis from around the world have surrounded the residence of the musician only minutes after the interview was broadcasted and are waiting for the star to comment on the allegations. The British MI5 also announced an investigation to determine if an impostor could have indeed posed for 48 years as the member of the Order of the British Empire, Sir James Paul McCartney, during official ceremonies involving Queen Elizabeth II. It is definitely possible that Paul's replacement was unaware of any furtive plots hatched by MI5 to control the biggest rock band of the era. In that case, where he was installed to cover up a truly accidental death of the real Paul, the following perspective is offered for the reader's consideration. It must be acknowledged that Paul McCartney's replacement was tasked with one of the toughest jobs in the world. Regardless of who he really is, the new Paul, some call him Fall, was certainly coerced, or simply assigned by MI5, to play a role that only preordained destiny could have fatefully brought to him in 1966. In this light, his was perhaps one of the greatest sacrifices made in modern times. For he was compelled to leave behind his real identity for the rest of his life in the interest of the greater good for all of humankind. Yes, he got to play a rock and roll superstar, but that's not nearly as fun or easy as it sounds. Now many may say, as many have already said, that he was, and is, an imposter. No, he is not an imposter. In reality, all of us are called upon from time to time to be or act like something that we are not. We spontaneously fill that vital role in the moment because it is ours to do. In the case of Paul McCartney's replacement, his noble and selfless deed surely saved the lives of who knows how many across the planet. Again, this highly qualified perspective is being presented in the event that Paul's replacement was truly unaware of any designs by British secret services to use the Beatles to advance a clandestine worldwide agenda. Addendum. The following excerpt comes from a post at hugequestions.com under the title Paul is Dead, New Evidence Based on Computer-Enhanced Forensic Technique. A DNA test. Carlesi and Gavazzini commented that if McCartney really wanted to put an end to these rumors, he could have offered to take a DNA test with his father or his younger brother, Mike, but he didn't. McCartney took a DNA test only once, but the authors of the article point out that the DNA test created more confusion and suspicion of his true identity, not less. In 1962, when the Beatles were living in Hamburg, Germany, and still unknown to most people, Paul McCartney had a brief affair with a German woman named Erika Wollers. She gave birth to a daughter, Bettina, in December 1962, which was during the time the Beatles were starting to become famous. The Beatles soon left Germany, and McCartney abandoned Erika. Around 1967 McCartney agreed to pay 30,000 Deutsche Marks to support Bettina, but he was not admitting to being her father, even though she claims her German birth certificate identifies him as her father. Once Bettina became an adult, She asked a German court to have McCartney recognize her as his natural daughter. McCartney had to submit to a DNA test, and the test showed that he was not her father. Interestingly, based on an autograph signed by McCartney, together with some photos taken for the occasion, Bettina accused the person who took that DNA test of being a substitute for Paul, not the real Paul McCartney. The autograph, for instance, was signed by somebody right-handed. Paul was left-handed.
Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. Right, I have no idea what episode on the conspiracy theories we have, but today's conspiracy theories I was fascinated. Absolutely fascinated with. I hadn't heard it before. I had heard about it, but I hadn't went into it. But when I started doing this, I've obviously started doing the research. John Lennon came in. So John wants to speak, obviously. I don't know if he wants to speak on this, but he's literally sitting in a chair. Just sitting in a chair. So without further ado, so to let you understand, well, you've probably just watched the first part of the research. So did Paul pass away in a car crash in 1966? Now, my intuition's telling me yes. It's telling me yes, but I want to see these all three fell out. I want to see just how, what let's see, what spirits has to say about it. But I'm getting a yes, and I'm getting like a kind of sporty car thing, like a wee kind of sports car. That's what I'm getting. And the colour green. Okay, so that's what's came through intuitively. So I want to see what else is coming through. Okay, so what's coming through? Right, okay. Wow, whatever this was, do you know, Paul is loved very much. This is the way I have to say it. Paul is loved very much. Very much. Yep. Wow, do you know what I'm getting? Those who participated are enchained by the lie. They feel bound by it. They feel bound by it. There was a great big deception. There's disappointment as well. Disappointment. Do you know what I'm hearing? I'll let John speak in a minute, but he's saying that he thinks the Beatles could have went on a lot longer had this not happened. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I like the Beatles, don't get me wrong, I do like their music, but I was born in the 60s, so I'm too young to know anything about them. I did like their music. I'm hearing water over the bridge. All about riches. It's all about money. It was all about, do you know what I'm hearing? Had that come out, because I feel as if they were just at their height, and had that news come out, they were going to lose a lot of money. Now we all know what it's like with money. They were going to lose a lot of money. I don't feel as if it was I'll say boys, because there were boys at that particular time, right? John's going, oh thanks very much. Oh thanks very much. But I don't think they'd made as much money. They'd made as much money in the 60s. There was another cover up as well. There's another cover up. It was covered up by a woman as well. There's a big, an independent woman too, covered it up, kept the secret, I feel as if this might be Paul's mum. Because how could you do that? How could you take that secret knowing that your son had passed away? When I was doing the research, that was furthermost in my mind. Not only had Paul to keep it the secret, so had his family. The two families. But it's all to do with dark forces and riches. Dark forces and riches. Definitely a woman. Right, in the research there was a baby as well, okay, a girl. I feel as if there's truth to that too. I'm wondering if the real, I'll call him the real Paul, right? Was the real Paul going with somebody? I feel as if this is all shrouded in secrecy. Yep, the truth will out. In the research I've done, Ringo put the truth out there. I don't know if he backtracked. On it. I hadn't came across that in the research, but I feel as if he put it out there and then he backtracked. You know, stringing the people along that were into the conspiracy. I think he put it out there and then he backtracked, as in, no, I was just going along. But did he? Did he backtrack? Oof. Want this one to do it too. It was definitely expand the brand. It was to do with money as well. I mean, in the research that I done, it was to do with, you know, the hype, but I'm getting it was not really more. It wasn't really to do with the fans. It was really to do with the hype, the money that they were making. There was something bigger in the picture than that. There was something to do with impatience. I don't know if the real Paul, call him the real Paul, was impatient about something. Something wasn't happening quick enough. Something wasn't right. Yeah, definitely. I feel as if both, I'll ask John about it in a minute, but both Paul and John knew that they were getting used. They were just getting used. I know their manager, I liked their manager, because he managed other people, but I did like him. He was keeping a secret as well. They brought up our secrets. They were all trying to keep one of our secrets. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you what John just said there. Oh gosh. Yep, they were keeping one of our secrets. yeah, they were trying to keep the lid on something as well. If something had happened, something had got out, it would have brought it all down. I don't feel as if that was the you know, like what happened to Paul. I feel as if that happened to the manager. So there was a secret the manager was keeping. There was a secret your manager was keeping. Oh well, I can imagine that would be. Oh, that would be in the 1960s. Oh, yep. Yep, they were putting up a front. There was a front going up. Like say, there was turmoil within the band as well. I feel as if they were exhausted. They were practically at burnout as well. Do you know what I'm getting a parallel with? See the young boys that were in the X Factor, that came up through the X Factor, and they were kind of getting shoved here, there and everywhere, and they were almost at burnout as well. I feel as if this is what was happening, or ready to happen to the Beatles as well, because you were doing films, weren't you? Aye, they were doing films, it was the same as Elvis as well, you know, where, I don't know, I keep saying Paul's here. Somebody, just say, you know, the person who is calling himself Paul, he's here. John is sitting in the chair, and he looks like Paul, by the way. He does look like him. Short hair, very young. Where John is showing himself with his long hair, his all you're saying is give peace a chance days, whereas the person that's coming in and kind of saying he's Paul, he's got short hair, he's got a rounder face. He's got a rounder face. They two are together. Yep. There's definitely something. The argument was John wanted to do something, but Paul wanted to put the brakes on. John saying Paul was the brains of the operation. Paul wanted to put the brakes on, and John was all ready to go. Wow. Definitely. They were tearing their hair out. I'll let them speak in a wee minute. Tearing their hair out. I can hear arguing. Was there another drummer? Did you just have another drummer before Ringo? Because I'm hearing another drummer as well. Right, there was gossip. There was gossip about them as well. There was gossip about Paul, but there was gossip about John. There was... Somebody was trying to stop the fame. They even had a rival band. There was another band round about the time as well, where I don't know if they were accusing them of stealing lyrics or just trying to discredit them a bit. I feel as if this was before they get famous. Was there a band in, I think it's the Cavern, they're saying aye. I feel as if there was that era. There was Cilla Black, there was the Beatles, but there was another group. There was another group as well, all from Liverpool. They were wise. John's saying, you know, half of the money they never seen. Half of the money they made they never seen. And the money was made after they broke up. There was it Michael that bought your catalogue? I think Michael Jackson bought their catalogue. So they never even got that. Oh jeez, oh man, that would annoy me as well. I would be annoyed too. Not of Michael. John's saying the only one that conquered the world and was poor. He's saying you can have all the money in the world, money doesn't buy you happiness. Well, I can't buy you love, oh sorry. That's like a double act. It's like a double act, money can't buy me love. That's one of the song titles I know, but that's, oh jeez. I can't get through it. I can pick the cards. I can't get through this with this double act. Right. They're now placing the cards where they want them to go. They were good friends. They had their moments, they're saying, but they had good friends and they'll just not be quiet. I'm asking them to be, just can you hold on a wee minute? No, they won't. They won't. Right. Whatever happened, it all stemmed from, I feel as if whatever went on, it all stemmed in London. It wasn't Liverpool, it was London. It all went wrong in London. It all went wrong in London. And the one that's calling himself Paul, I'll say it that way, it's calling himself Paul, because I've got to keep myself right. The one that's calling himself Paul said that they were duped. Not by their manager, they loved their manager very, very much, but by men in suits, they're saying men in suits, it was men in suits. Yep. This was for something else. I mean, I know you'll have seen in the research that I did, there was something else. Obviously there was, you know, the Alphabet Agency, but there was, I don't mean the American one, I mean the British one. There was too much money to be made. And whatever there was some sort of agenda as well. There was it was to do with religion too. It was to do with religion. It was to, at that particular time, I think we were coming out of the 50s into the 60s, where the 50s were all kind of church and chapel and that kind of thing, where they had control of the teenagers, where the teenagers in that particular time were kind of coming into their own. Do you know, this is the camp, but John's saying sometimes he wishes he'd stayed in England, sometimes he just wishes he'd stayed. Fame comes at a price, he says. He's saying fame comes at a price. I feel as if there was a woman involved with Paul. I'm going to ask him to speak. Now, I'll say he's coming across as Paul. He's coming across as Paul, okay? I'll give him his chance to speak. Wow, they wanted them broke up. They wanted them broke up because they were too influential on the youth. The youth. They liked the money aspect of it, but I feel as if, you know, John and Paul and, I mean, they were actually quite intelligent. I wish I could tell you what you were saying. Whereas before they could, I'll call them the suits, right? Because I can see these people in suits, right? They could manipulate the youth, you know, like say bands. They can manipulate them because all the bands wanted was fame and fortune, or fame, but they couldn't really manipulate the Beatles because, like the likes of John John had his a very firm foundation of the world. The world. Well, yes. Even before I started turning these cards, right, my intuition was telling me that Paul passed away. He passed away. Now, is it an imposter? No, because he's very much a victim as others, okay? Allegedly, I better say allegedly. Oh, I better say allegedly, right? So whoever's here, whoever's now, he's very much a victim as well. A victim of greed. It's all to do with money. It's all to do with money. So there's the three of you over there then, now, but you. Who was it saying, my sweet lord? Is that George? Right. Is there three over? So would that leave, is Ringo away? I don't know. I'm getting confused now, they're confusing me. I'm wondering, is somebody's child over there? Is somebody's child over there? Something to do with children anyway. I'm going to get them to speak in a minute and see what they wanted to say. The truth will out. The truth will come out. It will come out. Okay. I can understand that. I'm asking Thomas if I can tell you that, but Thomas is saying hold off just now. Okay. Yeah, look at the bigger picture. Look at the bigger picture. Okay, so who wants to go first? I know you're dying. Come on, who wants to go first? Right, John's going to go first. Right. John's come through. Right, I'm going to ask John to just do a one-to-one as well. No offence, Paul, but a one-to-one, because John's actually talking about the state of the world just now. Because John was more kind of, even then he knew that the state of the world was going on. So he's of the opinion that, you know, do you know what I'm hearing? All we are saying is give peace a chance. He knew a lot. He's saying it was a hit. His death was a hit. It was ordered. John's death was ordered. Maybe do that as well. Maybe can I look into that. Do you know what John's saying? He wouldn't like to be living in these times. He wouldn't like. He says he probably. He's got such a sense of humour. He says, if I come back, if I come back just now, if I come back like a wee, no, like what, born in the 70s or something, if he come back now, he'd be born then, they would have took him out again. They would have took him out again because he can't keep his mouth shut. He says, I can't keep my mouth closed. He got too close to something that was going on. Too close to something. Wow. So he's going to take a wee step back and let whoever is calling himself Paul, he's calling himself Paul. Do you know what I'm seeing? He's showing me what happened in that day. There was a big argument. That's true, he's saying. That's true. Him and John, but it wasn't just him and John, there was others. And it was all to do with... Somebody wanted to put the brakes on it because I feel as if Paul felt that they were going too fast, too quickly. Go here, go there, do this, do that. We need this, like, these are not, they were arguing over songs, they were arguing over trivial things, and he just went out for air. That's what he's saying. I had taken enough, and it's not only on me when you go out the door, and because it's like a swing door, and see when you push the door, it's like an emergency exit, it's kind of where you push the door and it thumped off the wall, and he walks out. That's just what he's showing me. He walks out, and the next thing, it's like a wee sports car, it's like kind of car, and he's bombing it down the road. I can't even get where it was. I don't know if it was England, if it was abroad, but I know he took a turn too fast, he said, and crashed. He crashed the car. One minute he was there, 1 minute he wasn't. Crashed the car. So yes, I would say, coming to the conclusion, I feel as if that conspiracy about passing away is true. That's what's shown. Make up your own mind. Make up your own mind, okay? That's what Paul's telling you to do, it's what John's telling you to do. I've always said, what's your intuition telling you? What's your intuition telling you? But John's saying to keep yourself right, say, this is alleged. This is alleged. Okay, so he's looking after me. He's looking after me. I feel as if somebody's wife's over there. Somebody's wife. She's standing in the background nodding. She's nodding. I'm not sure what wife it is though. It's somebody's wife's over there as well. So John's saying, keep yourself right, say alleged. So alleged, but he's come, he's quite, sorry John, but see, the person that's calling himself Paul is quite handsome. He is quite handsome. So that's what I'm saying. But if you put the two of them together, because they're putting the two pictures together, and I'm looking at them in my mind, I'm looking at them. But I would say that the wee one that's coming across, you're wee to me because you're young, has got a rounder face than who's here just now. He's got a rounder face, the one in spirit. So I'll leave that with you. So yes, intuitively, yes, I would say this conspiracy is true. But alleged, John's going, alleged. Okay, yes, I have to say alleged. And John, you're coming back. John's coming back to tell us about how we move forward, how he sees us moving forward, okay? How he sees us moving forward, alright. Alright, so I'll leave that with you. Thanks for coming through, and yeah, I'm quite sad that, you passed, Anyway, I'll go and I'll be back with another conspiracy. Alright, thanks for watching.